And we are live. Are we safe, guys? Are we safe from the powers that be? I'm here with Paul. What's going on, Paul, brother? What's going on? It's been a week.
Ah, been prepping for the apocalypse, mate. That's what I've been doing.
First of all, um, you've been all right, yeah?
Yeah, no, I'm well, mate. Yeah, I can't complain. Well, I could, but nobody would pay any attention.
It takes time. It takes time. It takes time, guys. We already got two of you guys watching. Please feel free to send your messages, post your messages and all of that. Are we safe? What we mean is, are we safe from the powers that be? That's what we're really talking about. So, what do you reckon, mate? Are we safe?
I think we've been in more danger from our own government than we have at any time in a very, very long time. I couldn't say when, but I mean, just look at 2020. Look at what they did during 2020. They lock you down. They'll arrest you for not wearing masks. Put you in a cell for not wearing a mask. So you've got the police aren't the police. They're not there to protect us. They are there to enforce our overlords' rules. And that's what a lot of people didn't appreciate and for some reason didn't get the message during 2020, which is that the overlords say, you stay in your homes, you wear a mask, and if you didn't do it, the order followers would just kick your door in if you've got too many people in the house and drag you off to the cells, and they pin you down in the street and put you in torture cuffs and drag you off to the police station if you're not wearing a mask. And that's 2020. We're not in a safe society. We're not safe from the police. We're not safe from our government. We're not safe from the NHS because they see all these heart attacks and everything going on and nobody's saying a word about it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. The
Yep.
vaccine, same deal. You know, they pushed it and pushed it. The media pushed it. The social media pushed it. The governments pushed it. The doctors, the pharmacists pushed it. Everybody pushed it. And yet, when they started seeing the adverse events, I saw people having seizures and collapsing immediately after having the vaccine and being taken out on stretchers, and people still waiting in line like they were sheep, and nobody's saying a word about it.
But hold on, Paul.
But
Isn't the government supposed to protect us? Isn't that the idea of the government?
theoretically speaking, yeah, that's the lie that we've been sold, is that they're doing the best for our um, what for our best interests, right? But that's not the case. Because why are they starting a war with Russia? Why are they pushing us closer and closer to nuclear war every day if they care about the population? Why are they? Why have they got 70% of tax on fuel when they know that everybody's hurting in the pocket? You know what I mean?
One
Like
one
they don't care about us.
one argument that they could make is that these wars, these things that they put in place, even things like, I don't, let's stay away from the C word, C Ovid. Let's
Yeah,
stay away from
no
that.
worries. All right.
But
The event. We'll call it the event.
the government will turn around and say, well, these things, the reason why we go to war, the reason why we tell you to wear masks is because we are trying to protect you. We are looking after you, mate. The reason why we allow you to abort your kids is to protect you, to give you rights, to give you freedom. The reason why we allow you to get drunk out of your mind, the reason why we don't allow you to have weapons is so that we can protect you, mate. That's their argument.
No, I get it. I get it. But the thing is that let's take the mask thing for instance. I don't know whether you were paying attention from the very beginning, but they started off saying no, you don't wear a mask because they don't work. Dr. Fauci said that himself. Then when we went into lockdown in March, everybody obliged and they stayed at home, and for a couple of months people stayed at home for a while, and then everybody started going out and going, well, it's not that bad, I ain't really seen all that many problems with it. I see stuff on TV but I don't see anything outside. So they were going outside and they started doing their shopping and going back to their regular life. So then they brought a mask mandate in because then you see the pandemic everywhere you look. It's a constant reminder of the fact that you were in this situation, right? It wasn't for our own best interest. They knew that those masks didn't work, and yet they forced it on us anyways. There was data from 2017, 2016, 2017 that said that the CO2 that's trapped behind the mask when you're breathing actually causes more problems because you're breathing in more carbon dioxide than you are getting rid of it, and so you're actually depriving your brain of oxygen. It was actually causing problems. They didn't tell you about that. They didn't tell you about the fact they now find microplastics in the lungs, which they never found that before. I wonder where that came from. No, they don't do anything unless it's for their own interest. And I forget who it was now, but there was a dude, he was a warmonger in America. And he's a Republican. He was on TV the other day, and he said, well, there's $12 trillion worth of resources in Ukraine, and if we help Ukraine win, then we'll get access to those resources, and we really need them. And I thought, yeah, you're finally telling the truth. That's the reason why you're going in there. You're not as interested in the Ukrainians, otherwise you wouldn't have been thrown up against a force that they can't defeat. You're interested in the resources, and that's the truth of the matter. And they're going to send in soldiers from all over the world. They went into Afghanistan because it was the minerals, right? They went into Iraq for the oil and to control the oil because Saddam Hussein was going to start selling oil by the euro. And they couldn't have that because it was going to affect the dollar. So they went in, they took him out. They took out Gaddafi because he was going to start a gold-backed system for the African countries. They couldn't have that. The gold lira, he was going to start that. They couldn't have that. So they're using the military to further their own ends because we're not benefiting from any of these things. I'm not going to see any profit from those minerals in Ukraine. And I didn't see any benefit from them taking over the oil in Iraq. And I didn't see any benefit from killing Gaddafi. I didn't get a check from the government saying, hey, look, we've been into this country. We got all these resources down. Here's your cut. No, they took that money themselves.
Paul, they could argue that, look, listen, we might make a few mistakes here and there, but we are all doing this in order to protect you. Eventually, it is to protect you. Remember, the reason why they went to Iraq, to invade all those lands there, is because we were attacked. The West was attacked, and they had to protect
by the CIA, yeah, and Mossad. But yes, carry on.
Let's go easy. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about. Please. But what I'm saying is the argument that I'm making is what they are saying. What their argument is. Look, mate. Just trust me. We are doing all of this so that you are safe. There is so that, and we're going to make mistakes along the way. We are going to make mistakes along the way. Okay. We are going to, do certain things. What do you think of that argument? Look, okay, the
I got you. Okay, well, I would say this then is why are you putting so many chemicals in our water that's causing us Alzheimer's and cancer and things like that? Why are you putting
chemicals? What chemicals?
Fluoride. Fluoride's a really bad one. It's basically an a side product of making aluminum. Have you heard this one?
Yeah.
So basically, when you're making aluminum or aluminium, fluoride is a byproduct of it, and it was costing the aluminium company an absolute fortune to get rid of it because it's really, really toxic. So they were obviously because of government regulations with that sort of thing.
Is atrazine?
Atrazine, yeah. Atrazine is Atrazine is a pesticide that they've been using on our crops for quite a while, and it causes. Well, if you put atrazine in the water with frogs, the frogs will start changing gender, basically. So that's the
Wow.
whole.
Oh wow.
Yeah, Alex
Right.
Jones is. I'm sick of them putting shit in the water that makes the fucking frogs gay. That's what he's talking about. It's atrazine. But yeah, fluoride's deliberately put into the water supply, and it's put in because the aluminium companies realised that they could convince everybody that fluoride in the water is good for your teeth, which it isn't, and that they convinced the government then to allow fluoride to be mixed in with the water. So now, rather than having to pay to get rid of the byproduct, they are being paid to sell it onto the water companies. There's all sorts of other heavy metals in the water and that sort of thing. And if they're filtering the water and we're paying for it, why is all that stuff in there, right? The
Mm.
same with seed oils. Yeah, seed oils is really bad for you. They're carcinogens. They cause cancers and things like that. So do you remember there was a? If you look flora margarine, it now says on there no. Was it not? It's not. It's not rapeseed. It's another one. They started using it recently, but essentially, what happened was they were using these seed oils to grease machinery,
Oh
and
wow. Okay.
this yes, so this stuff is really good for greasing machinery.
Hmm.
And what they did was they mixed in chemicals with it and they loosened it up and diluted it, and then they started selling it to food manufacturers. So they went from using like sunflower oil and things like that, which isn't that good for you. Olive oil is good for you. Coconut oil is good for you, but these seed oils are actually really bad. And if you remember a few years ago when you'd drive in the country, you'd smell the rape in the air, like the rapeseed oil, the rape seeds. It was because there was a big thing there. Everybody was producing rapeseed because there was a market for it. But that's not good for you either. But they allow it to be put in our food, so why are they doing that? What about all the chemicals in the McDonald's food? There was recently an article, I think it was in February of this year, that said they'd done tests and they said that pregnant women shouldn't eat fast food because the amount of chemicals in them could affect the baby. And
I've
I'm
read.
like, well,
Yeah, you showed me that. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right. So if if it's not good for a bloody baby, why is it good for us? And why is the government allowing it? They know these things are going on, but they're not doing anything about it, right? Cigarettes, right? They say 40 different chemicals in cigarettes that will cause cancer.
Mm.
Why are the governments just putting labels on the packets? Why aren't they saying to the tobacco companies, stop using these chemicals to cure the tobacco leaves? Because that's what it is. It's not the tobacco itself, it's the way that they cure the tobacco. So all these carcinogens that are in tobacco are chemicals that are introduced to the leaves. And the government doesn't go, well, you've got to stop using those rapeseed makes canola oil. Yeah, they make they use a lot of oils for a lot of different things, but putting it in the food is not good for us. Um, yeah, what was I saying? Yeah, I was talking about
Mm.
what was I just saying?
Well, you got kind of distracted there with the
I got
research.
distracted. Yeah, sorry.
But why are they doing it? 'Cause you sent me some information in regards
Because
to.
there's too many of us.
Yeah, there's too many of us.
That's what it is. It's too many of us, and we live too long, and they can't have that. Because once we hit 60, so first it was retire at 55, then it was retire at 60, then it was 65, then it was 75. It'll be 80, 80 soon, or 60, 75. Then it'll be 70 soon, and they're keeping us in the workforce because they know we're living longer, and they don't want to pay us our retirement. You see, once we retire, we're no use to the government anymore. You know what I mean?
When you say there's too many of us, do you
Yeah.
subscribe to the idea that you know um, the population is too large, is too much, too big. Do you
No,
subscribe
no, I
to that
don't.
idea? Do you subscribe
No,
to?
no.
Do you know what I'm talking about, right? You
Yes,
know,
I know what you're saying there's too many people in the
Earth
world,
is
right?
overpopulated. The Earth is
Yeah.
overpopulated. Do you subscribe to that idea?
Well, let's put it this way. If you stood every single person in the world up in one place, you would only fill Texas. Just to put it in perspective for you.
Okay, let me and to add to that, um, Paul, how much of England is built upon?
Sorry? How much of England is?
Uh, Principal shouts to Principal, shouts to True AR. Principal says, "Can we start revealing the day and let's be specific? Who are they?" Yes, no, hold on,
Well,
hold on. Before we get to that, because we're definitely gonna get to that.
yeah.
Because it's hard to say, but I know what he's talking about. I know what he's talking about. But do you
Well,
subscribe?
they is pretty easy. I mean, it's the Rothschilds, it's the Rockefellers. It's those people at the very top that own all the corporations, own the banking systems, own use BlackRock and Vanguard and things like that. These people own those. So everybody below them are basically their puppets doing these things. And some of them prescribe to it, others are blackmailed, others are motivated by money and things like that. But those at the top are the ones that basically own the planet at this
But
point.
before
The
we
only
get
places they don't own are the ones they're trying to destroy.
before we get there,
Yeah.
um, do you subscribe to this idea that the Earth is overpopulated? Yeah, I was asking you a question. I was saying how much of England is built upon, or is built on, basically. How much percentage wise? How much of England is actually built on?
Oh
Out
God,
of,
not very much. Not very much. I would have said possibly 5 or 8%.
wow, that's actually really good. It's 7%.
Is
I
it?
think
Yeah.
yes. So every time, so this idea that we, because when I found this out, I was like, what? Only 7% of England is actually, it's actually built on. So this idea that we actually are overpopulated is absolutely nonsensical, and it is
Well, I mean, when you think that you could fit London into one decently sized farm, do you see what I mean? Like if you got a farm that's I don't know producing cattle or corn or whatever, and they've got a decently sized farm, you could sit London inside that quite happily. So that sort of like gives you an idea. And then there's all the land that you can't build on, like the forests that are still preserved, the mountainous ranges and things like that. So yeah, I would have said yeah, something like 5-7%. Yeah.
so okay. They don't want us to. They have an agenda for some reason. So if it's not overpopulation, why do they want to get rid of us so badly? Why do
Well,
they want to? Do you see where I'm coming from? Yeah. Why would they
yeah,
want
yeah.
to?
So there's a couple of things. One of the things is that they're no longer in the shadows, and that's a big problem for them because the thing is that the only way that you really stay safe when you're being so sadistic is if nobody knows you're the one doing it,
Yeah, but
which is why.
they have ultimate power. I mean, these guys start wars. They can contaminate your food. They can contaminate what you drink. I mean, these guys literally have all the power. There is nothing that they cannot do, so to speak. So
No,
this is
that's
what I
true.
don't understand. How is it that you have ultimate power, but you still need to be in the
Well,
shadows? What is this agenda of theirs?
the
Um,
trouble.
yeah, because
The,
we've clearly established that
I
they
get that, but the trouble
contaminate.
is, you
Yeah,
think
go
the
ahead.
thing is, that imagine if you had a million well-armed citizens all marching on your mansion at once. Is any of that power going to matter? That's the thing. That's why they said on the George. Sorry.
Say that again. Repeat that again for me, please.
What I just said, if you had a million people that marched on their mansion all at the same time, like none of that power would matter.
You reckon?
Well, no, of course not. How are you going to kill a million well-armed people all at the same time? You can't do it. Like,
Stalin killed over 60 million.
yeah, but Stalin took time doing it. And those people were staying in their homes hoping the military wouldn't come for them.
But the way
Stalin didn't just kill 60 million in a day. Stalin went and did that over a long period of time. The first thing he did was took the guns away, which is what every dictator does. Germany, Nazi Germany, Hitler did the same thing, took the weapons away. Venezuela, first thing they did when that dictatorship got in power, took the guns away. Castro, same thing, took the guns away. All of these people, China Mao, did the same thing. He went in there, took all the guns away, and then he slaughtered 100 million people.
now,
So,
yeah, but the point I'm making is if they are if they feel threatened, they have things in place in order to make sure. And I don't think if we are describing if what we are describing here are insane people or people that are willing to kill us at will, I don't think they would have a problem if 1 million people marched on their mansion to get the military to get rid of us.
the trouble is that now we're getting into a more sinister area. So,
Yes,
so,
yes,
all right. So you have to understand that here's the premise of this. First of all, that this is all a spiritual thing. All of this that's going on is a spiritual thing, and the corruption of God in the hearts of men is what they've been doing for a very long time. And when I say God, I mean goodness, truth, honesty, forthrightness, honor, chivalry, those things that make people humans, that make everybody have a connection and a basic human respect for one another. That's being corrupted. You know, it's being removed from men's minds and souls, right? And so this is a spiritual thing. And if you look into a lot of the ways that where do I even start? Okay, well, so there's our God, and then there's their God, right? And our God is the sort of idea of God that most of the religions have, the Jewish religion, the Christianity, and things like that. And then you've got their God, which is basically what we would consider in the Bible Satan.
hmm
However, there are many names. There's Moloch, even Set. So they like the god, the Saturn god as well. I can't remember his name, but yeah.
there's many of them. There's many of them.
Yeah, but they're all the same god. They're all the same.
Yes.
It's just how it has been. It changed over the years in our world, but in their world it's always been the same. It's always been the same God. The names have never changed. They know things that we don't. They have books on, they know about our history far more than we do. Just look at the millions of books that they have in the Vatican Library that they won't let anybody look at, things like that, right? They know about our history, know about this Satanist, they know it's all a spiritual thing, they know there's far more about this world than we understand. They've deliberately kept that from us. And what they're doing is that they have to tell us what they're doing in order for them to do it. That's in their religion, their book, whatever, and it's basically where they are trying to avoid karma. So they understand there's karma. If you do something terrible, then something bad happens to you. So what they do is they tell us, and if we don't do anything about it, then they take that as an okay. But they do it in really subtle ways. So they'll insert like little bits of information into films and things like that. They'll do it subliminally, but they're still telling you, and so for them that counts. And if we don't, like for instance, I'll give you a really, really good example of this. Do you remember the Captain America, the first Avenger film?
Yes.
Right, okay. Right at the end of that film, where Captain America's woken up after being frozen in that ice. He breaks out of that building. He stood in the middle of New York City, and there's a camera spinning around him as he looks around all the buildings and the TV screens and everything else. If you look in the background, this film was in 2012. If you look at the background on a wall and one of the screens, there's a C word image. You know, the 2020 crisis thing. There's an image of what we'd been shown as the thing that was going around that was good. It's up on that screen, and then on the other side there's a Corona bottle of Corona in the 2012. Dr. Fauci, about 2 years or 3 years before the big event, said, yeah, Donald Trump is going to face a serious crisis during his presidency.
Paul, let me just
They
ask
tell
you a quick.
us.
Let
You
me
know?
ask you a quick question. Principal, he's got a question for you. You mentioned banking families, right? Banking
Mm,
families.
yeah.
He's asking, is it Christian banking families? Is it Muslim banking families?
Well,
Um,
what you have to understand is, and here's what I know of it. I don't.
or another
Prof-
another group of people banking families?
yeah, I don't profess to know all of it, okay, but here's what I've been able to piece together. Is, you know, I'm gonna um, try
Let's
and
let's tread carefully. Let's tread.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to be.
The
So
internet is.
so have you ever met like a Christian that doesn't go to church on Sundays but says they're Christian? They identify as Christian, right?
Yeah, I used to
Yeah,
be one.
but
I
they
used to be one.
yeah, but they're not like full on religious Christians that read the Bible every night before they go to bed and pray and things like that. But they
Yeah,
just say they're Christian. They identify as it. There's a lot of
yeah.
Muslims out there like that as well. They identify as Muslim.
A
There's a lot of
lot of
Jews out
Muslims.
there.
A lot of
Right.
Muslims. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. A lot of Jews are the same. They identify as being Jewish. They're proud of it, and so they should be. That's fair enough. But they don't practice it. So, like your Muslim, he's not praying 5 times a day and things like that. What you've got the religions that are basically, in my opinion, they're there just to keep us all under control. They're controlled by the Vatican or by the Muslim leaders and things like that. They're all like basically to keep us believing. You know what I mean? And from what I understand, these elites, we'll call them elites, but I'm talking about the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Windsors, people like that. They have, it's like a kind of Jewish Muslim religion, but from what I understand, it's what was really the Jewish Muslim religion that is actually worshipping Satan. And it's a completely different book. It's a completely different understanding of the Jewish and Muslim religions that we understand them to be, and the books that they have, totally different to that. But it's the real one that they and these are the same people that were, it's the same religion that was sacrificing thousands, tens of thousands of people, with the Egyptians and with the Aztecs. It's that religion. That's the God they're worshipping, you
Are
know?
you talking about the occult?
Well, to an
Because
extent,
the God of the occult is known by many names, and I don't want to get too much into it because look, just to put things into perspective, we arrived at this point because what we are trying to find out is why are they doing what they're doing, what's motivating them.
well, you
Um,
just have to look at the Georgia Guidestones,
no,
which said that they want 500,000 people left.
yeah. So for example, exactly. I remember that. But what I'm saying is, it's like okay, they lie about overpopulation. They lie about these things. They put things in our water, in our food. They're trying to kill us, even though the earth is not overpopulated. What is motivating these people? It's not as if they don't have all the power already. They can make up some bullshit and go to war. They can lie to the public and go to war, and no one can do nothing about it.
Well,
So
Yeah, it's
what's motivating these guys?
it's
And
a
you
it's a
mentioned,
s- it's a
hold on first.
sacrifice. Oh,
And you mentioned the occult. You mentioned it's a spiritual warfare that's going on,
yeah,
and what you're describing right now is basically the occult. That's what you're
right.
describing right now. And so, what's their agenda? What's their agenda? I want to know what their agenda is.
Well, it's the same reason that they're passing off abortion as healthcare. It's a sacrifice. Um, they're sacrificing us left, right, and centre, and they're doing it. The more suffering and misery there is in the world, the more corruption of the heart. You see, the thing is that if you'd have taken the 1900s population and slaughtered them down to 500,000, that 500,000 would have been morally principled, and they'd still have their honour and their chivalry and everything else. So it's no good having 500,000 people that are not corrupt. Do you know what I mean? So you have to corrupt the soul, and the sacrifice. Obviously, they're sacrificing people left, right, and centre. And from what I understand, the sacrificing somehow feeds them or feeds their religion or whatever, if that's what they believe. You know, the thing is that I know it all sounds crazy, but they believe it's true. Do you know what I mean?
I don't think it sounds crazy at all. Do you agree that this is a bloodline going back to the Babylonian royal family?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I've heard. I was reading something recently that the royal family. Did you hear about Charles, Prince Charles, bragging about his great ancestor was Vlad the Impaler. You know, the guy that went around murdering tens of thousands of people, sticking a pike up their ass, and then sticking the pike in the ground, leaving them impaled on it. That was him. The guy who was the inspiration for Dracula
Yes.
is a descendant. Charles is a descendant of that guy. So these people have always had power. They've always, all these families have always had power. Like, that's what I was saying last time, is that we're born on the bottom, stay on the bottom.
Hassan,
We don't ever ascend, you know.
Hassan is asking if it's the Yahoo Muslim religion. Do you think they're part of this,
Well,
and let's be careful how we mention, well, how we use certain names, but do you
yeah,
think it's part
no.
of this agenda?
Well, the thing is, again, it's one of those things that the population of the Muslim religion that we know as it is, right? Those people aren't in on it. Like, the people that are just following their Quran aren't in on the plot. It's not like that. These people, we're all on the bottom of the pile. You have to remember that. The Christians, the Muslims, the Jews, we're all on the bottom of the pile. None of us, none of those religions give us any power, any real power or control at all. You've got the religions on the bottom, and then you have the secret societies like the Freemasons and things like that, and they have many of those, right? And the bottom Masons, I met Masons, and they say, oh, it's just a club, you know, and we go up in the degrees, and you get a little bit more power and help with your mates and that sort of thing, right? But they don't realise that when you get to the 33rd degree, there's actually another 33 degrees. And they've been assessing you through those first 33 degrees to see whether or not you're acceptable for the second 33, because those are the ones that run into the occult, Satanism, sacrifice and everything else. If you're not ready for that, they leave you at the top of that pile. Nobody knows any better. So these Masons at the bottom, they don't think, oh yeah, we're going to go around murdering children. They don't think like that, because they don't think that masonry, that part of masonry that they see and understand, is like that. They've never seen any of it. But the top 33 degrees is like that. But you only get let in if you've got the right sort of mindset for it. And
Would
there's
you,
guys,
Paul, would you say
yeah,
that they have infiltrated certain religions? Would you agree with that?
well, they created them. They created them over a long period of time. So basically, take the Bible. How many different variations of the Bible have there been?
Uh,
If you look at Well, no, but it's not true though, is it? It's King James
It
Bible, for instance, right? And they went from 44 different books within the Bible to taking it down to sort of 7 or 8. So, like, the Dead Sea Scrolls had a lot of the books that aren't in the Bible that we have today. They've rewritten the Bible over and over again because each time they rewrite it, they've rewritten it because they wanted a certain thing. They wanted to change Christianity or Christians to see their religion in a different way. And that's what I'm saying. And they've done it.
let me just reply to that, Paul. That
Yeah.
is secular that is secular atheist propaganda when they tell you things like the Bible has been rewritten. The Bible hasn't been rewritten. Hold on,
Okay.
hold on. Um, everything we have over 5,800 manuscripts. They are dated to 90 AD. All the Gospels were written by 90 AD. We have 9,300 manuscripts written in different languages: Syriac, Ethiopic. We've got we've got what was the other one? Yeah, but the point is, it's like we've got so much there that, and no books have been removed. None of that has happened. These books are
Oh,
available. It's just that, let's say, the Bible, for example, the Catholics, they choose to add the Apocrypha, which is books which are not necessarily part of the canon, but you can either add them or not add them. For example, the Catholic Bible has 73 books, while the Protestant only have 66, because they prioritize the canon over the other books. Those books don't contradict anything. And when you go to, for example, when you go to Ethiopia, they'll have 88 books. So, but none of that contradicts the message of the Bible. These books have always been available. People have access to it. When the King James is just a person that basically asked for the Bible to be translated, um, and to basically be widely available. So it's just that's all it is. But the thing is, if anyone ever tries to corrupt the Bible or change anything in the Bible, we have all the manuscripts to check it against. So
no, of course.
you can't just come in and create a new Bible and rewrite a new Bible, because any scholar will tell you, well, okay, where did you get this from? Because we have 9,000, we got 5,800 manuscripts there, mate, and this does not this does not match up. Put it that way. So we have the scriptures there. We can always check it, so no one can ever corrupt it. It's literally impossible. Um, so that would be my answer to that.
For
Read
Psalms 119.
read it
And
out.
if you look, right, if you look at that, each of those is differently phrased
Yeah,
depending on the version that they put out. Look, King James there, and then there's
yeah.
all the other. Right. So they are changing it. Because if there was only one book and there was only one word and it was only phrased in one way, why are there several different versions of it? That's my point. And they changed the
Oh,
language in each one, and that's what I'm pointing out, is that slowly over time they rewrite the book. Every now and then they rewrite it. You can go back and check the ones that were written in the 900 AD and everything else, and I get that. I'm not saying that they're destroying those, but what I'm saying is they're replacing them, and you're not going back and comparing the new Bible that's come out to the one that was written 900 or 1800, 1200 years ago. And that's my point. My point is that they've changed it over time.
Paul, do you speak Shakespeare? Do you speak in the same way that Shakespeare used to speak?
Well, no, I don't know.
So the English language has changed, right?
Right.
Exactly. If you
But
read,
have the words, the quality of the words changed?
no, all those versions that you pointed out, you can look at, for example, people that translate the Quran, for example. You're going to have different scholars, different organizations translating the Bible. But what you will notice is, if you read through all of those versions, they all say the same thing. They are
Yeah,
written differently. They're translated differently, but they all say the
right.
same. But the point is
Yeah,
this:
more or less, more or less. But you see, the thing
same
is that
thing.
all you have to do is change one word, right? And then change it again 200 years later, and then change that word again 200 years later. And before you
Okay,
know it,
okay. Would you
you've
agree?
got,
Would you agree that
what's
if you
that?
have, if you do you agree if you have 5,800 ancient, sorry, 5,800 manuscripts written in ancient Greek. It's going to be a very difficult task for you to, because we can always fact check it. So, for example, let's say you come up with something that is erroneous, or some new verse that we haven't heard. We can always go back to those 5,800 Greek
Of course.
manuscripts
Yeah.
and say, hold on a second. Well, that doesn't make any sense. That's not what it says in ancient Greek. So
Yeah.
this is what I mean by being impossible to corrupt.
Right.
If those translations and those things were completely off, we have something to check against. we
Yeah.
can we can literally hold these people accountable, because anyone, I mean, if you want to translate the Bible, if you want to translate these manuscripts, it's easy. You just have to become a scholar. You have to become someone who's an expert in ancient Greek, in
How many people are doing that?
Hebrew, and so on, and then you can translate yourself.
No,
You can go and
I
translate
got
it.
you. Yeah.
You
But
know?
what I'm saying is that all those versions are in English. All those
Yes,
versions are in English. Right. Okay. So why are they changing it all the time? That's what I'm saying to you.
but
Is and hang on a sec. The other argument that I made as well is that there used to be 40 books and now there's only 7.
no,
So why are they taking?
those books, no, 7. Which books were 7?
Well, I can't remember the exact numbers, but there's far less than there used to be. So if you look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch, for instance, right? Or was it the Book of God, what's the name? Hang on a second. I'm not a religious scholar, unfortunately. So
No, the, the, re- the
I
reason the reason why I'm
we've
challenging you on this, the reason why I'm
no,
challenging you on
no,
this is
I
I've
get
heard,
you.
I've heard, I've heard this propaganda being put out there, that the Bible has been changed, which is all lies. We have, like I said, we have 5,800 manuscripts in ancient Greek,
Yeah,
dated 90 AD. There is no way you can corrupt anything, because we'll always be able to check it, and we'll always be able
yeah.
to find out who's doing what. If these ancient manuscripts didn't exist, Paul, I would be on your side.
Look, I'm not trying to. Yeah, so it is the Book of Enoch. It's the Book of Enoch.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to criticize Christianity at all. But what I'm
Oh no,
saying is
please
the
feel
book.
free, criticize it. I want you to criticize it. I
Well,
want
yeah, but the thing is that my point is that what we were told in the original books and what we're told today are two totally they're different things, and they've been manipulated over time. And this isn't propaganda. This is me seeing that there were a lot more books like the Book of Enoch. They took that book out. They said, no, 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 no. There's too much truth in that one. So we're taking it out. We removed it. They removed it from one of the earlier Bibles. The only reason we know about it is because there's one or two mentions of it in history books, and they found the Dead Sea Scrolls. And that's my
you.
point. Is like, where's the Book of Enoch? Why isn't it in the Bible? It was originally in the Bible.
I'll tell you where it is. It's part of the Ethiopic Bible. That's where it is.
That's right. It
Um,
is. It is.
it,
So why is it in that book but not in our book? That's my
no,
point.
no.
Is that what? And
I,
like
I can
the
I can answer that for you. Like I said earlier, certain books, the Book of Enoch, which doesn't contradict anything that's written in the Bible, it's not part of the canon. It's not part of the canon. It's just that, for example, the Protestants decided not to put in their Bible.
aha.
Yeah, they decided not to put in the
They
Bible.
changed the religion
No, they didn't.
to
They
their
didn't.
own ends. Yes,
No,
they
they
did.
didn't.
Well, they
No,
did because it was in the book. Now it's not in the book. So
no,
they
no,
go,
no,
no, no, we don't want that bit. It doesn't work for us. We're going to
no,
take it
no.
out and we're going to
Let
change
me,
the religion. Yeah,
let
then.
me put
See
it.
what
Let
they
me put
did.
it. The reason why you even know about it is because it's still in existence. The reason why you
Yeah.
even know about it is because it's not hidden. It's not something that
But
it's
you're
not
not following it.
no, I'm following it, because I've read the Book of Enoch, and the Book of Enoch doesn't contradict anything in the Bible. It's just that certain books, when we say the canon, we're talking about the main books of the Bible. Those books cannot
Who,
be changed.
who, who chose? Who chose? Who chose which books to be in there and which books shouldn't?
Good
That's my
question.
point.
Fantastic, good question.
Yeah,
The church to tradition authorities, they the ones who
that's
chose
right.
it. They the one. They.
Yeah, yeah. And who's controlling the church and authorities? Who set those up in the first place? Who's the ones
I'll,
controlling it?
I'll tell you. I'll tell you.
They
Jesus
had, they
Christ.
had a bloody Nazi,
Oh, no,
Nazi as a pope at one point. He was an ex-Nazi.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you who. I'll tell you who. I'll tell you who. Jesus. Jesus Christ set up the trend. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ set up the authority of the church. Because we have the Bible, and Jesus says, um,
Well, did he just tell us what we needed to hear, and then people set a church up later to
nope,
go, oh yeah, there's a good moneymaker here. Maybe they
nope.
had good intentions to begin with. Maybe they did have good intentions. Let's worship Jesus. Let's worship God. Let's do it and do it the way Jesus wanted. And then over time, you got corrupt people who thought, hang on a second, the Romans, they incorporated the Christianity into their religion, right? And they go, oh yeah, that's a good idea, but let's infiltrate that one and then we'll change it over time so we can control people. And now you've got paedophiles running around left, right and centre within the church system, and they're covering up for them left, right and centre. It's because they want to corrupt the idea of God, and they want to corrupt the idea. Look at Jehovah's Witnesses. They're covering up paedophilia left, right and centre. And they
Oh,
know it's going on and they're keeping it quiet because they know it's a good money maker, and they don't want the religion to fall apart because all of these scandals coming out. But as people in power, they don't care about the religion. They only care about power and controlling people. And that's my point. My point is that Christianity in itself, as an individual person, loving God, loving Jesus, and praying for people and trying to abide by the Ten Commandments and everything else, that's good. That's what Jesus was talking about, right? Was that that beautiful individual who's just trying to do right in the world and be a good person. That's what it's all about. It's not about gold encrusted churches with paedophilic priests, and it's not about Vaticans who have their own country and have enough money to feed every starving child in Africa and all this stuff. That's my point. My point is there's a system that's set up to control us, and then there's the religion itself. And the religion itself is beautiful, and then it's corrupted by everyone else. That's my point. And they do it through the book, they do it through control, they do it through the churches and everything else. Look at that one bishop who turned around and said, look, I don't agree with the transgender thing, and I don't agree with the gay marriage because it's in the book. It says that stuff's not acceptable. And they crucified him. They got rid of him. They removed him from the church. So even the Pope recently said, "Oh yeah, gay marriage is good. It's fine. It's fine." This stuff goes totally against what's in the Bible. So a man should not lie down with another man. That's what it says in the Bible, right?
let
And it
me let,
says it in the Quran too. So
let me just reply to that. Um, Interesting, interesting. I've heard all this before, by the way. I've heard all this before. Um, Jesus is the one who set up the church because he actually gave Peter that authority, and you see in the Acts of the Apostles, the church actually forming it, and Peter becoming the leader of the church. Jesus said to Peter, Peter, your name is the rock, which translates into the rock, and of course, his name is Peter translated into English. It's not what the Hebrew, they didn't have the name Peter. I think it's Cephas. But anyways, translation to the rock, he says, "From this rock I will build what must be called my church, and the gates of hell will not prevail against it. Um, I give you the keys. Whatever you unlock on earth will be unlocked in heaven. Wherever you lock in heaven, wherever you lock on earth will be locked in heaven." So the authority to build the church was given by Jesus Christ. You're absolutely right. It was given to men who are not perfect, but nevertheless, um, Jesus Christ gave that authority to men. And it makes sense because there's always a hierarchy to everything, right?
well,
Um,
of course there is. We're naturally like that as
we're
human
not like
beings.
that. It makes sense. It makes sense for there to always be a hierarchy. So if you look at church tradition, if you look at the history of the church history, you will see in the Bible, this hierarchy forming from you'll see oh, shouts to True A for donating. Appreciate that, brother. 499, appreciate that. Um Shouts to you, bro. Uh, but yeah, so you will see during you'll see the tradition, the history of the church, the formation of the church, the hierarchy, all of that was established by Jesus. He left us in charge, and Jesus said, "Everything will pass away, but my words will never pass away." It's funny. It's funny for a man that never lifted a sword, never conquered a country, to be the most famous human being on earth that we've ever seen. Now,
Except Donald Trump.
and we're gonna move on from the we're gonna move on from the thing because this all ties into it. I wanna deal with everything else, but I just wanna answer your question. So this have they have so this idea of the church and there being a hierarchy and who established it was not invented by human beings. It is something that is protected by God. Jesus was the one who founded it. So and this is in the scriptures, and we see that hierarchy being formed very early on the Acts of the Apostles. So yeah, we have a church tradition. We have all of that. We have the church fathers that people can read, and so on and so forth. So this is not something um okay. Has there been people that have tried to corrupt, have behaved in an immoral way, in a sinful way against Christian values? Yes, but you'll find that everywhere, right? You'll find pedophiles everywhere, right? The only reason why the media likes to push this idea that priests are pedophiles is because they hate the Catholic Church. They can't stand the Catholic Church because the Catholic Church is the ancient church, and it goes and it
I'm not
goes all
saying
the way
that.
back to church tradition. Hold on a second, just to finish this bit here. Okay, the Catholic Church has not allowed gay marriages. That's not true. What it has done is, I think what you're talking about is same-sex blessing.
They've allowed abortion, though, haven't they?
No, they didn't. They were the ones saying that
They
abortion
have
is
in
evil.
Ireland.
No, no, no. That's that. Okay, okay. Oh, I think I know where the confusion is coming from, bro. I know where the confusion is coming from. Finally, do you think this is a Christian country?
I think it was a Christian country at one point. I think Christianity's been um, forced out. I mean, I'll say this, right? The elites hate Christians, so I'm going to assume that they got something right.
Okay, so basically, this is no longer Christian country. The separation of church and state happened way back in the 1700s. So ever since then, it has been secular.
Oh, I see what you
Um,
mean.
so it's secular. This is not a Christian country. It's not run by Christian country. Abortion is something that the Catholics have been fighting against. This is why you only see Christians outside of abortion clinics. You don't see atheists. You don't see any other person from any other religion because
No.
we are the only ones who are against abortion.
Well, you're not going to get Muslims stopping white people, British people, from killing their babies. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, like we went into their country and murdered millions of their people. They're not going to complain about us killing our own offspring, are they? So you're not going to get Muslims outside. If you had abortion clinics in places like Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria and places like that, you get a lot of Muslims outside of it. So do you see what I'm saying? Is like Christians are outside at the abortion clinics because the abortion clinics are in Christian countries or mostly Christian countries.
Secular
You see it?
countries. Secular countries has
Well,
nothing to do with Christianity. A
but
lot of people blame Christianity for secularism, and I can't stand that because we are not. This is not theocracy anymore. We are not in charge of the government. The Pope
no,
is not in charge of the government. It's basically they separated from church. The
yes, no,
state separated from church.
yeah.
They decided to come up with their own evil ideologies, and now they don't like the consequences of their actions, and now they want to go back and blame the church when it's really their fault for why they did
Well,
for why they did what they did. So what I would say, but just to go back, just to this idea of same-sex blessing, right? I just want to. It's more for other people listening. The idea of same-sex blessing. Okay, no, it does not say that priests are allowed to bless the union. That is not what the document says. The document is called
they're blessing the individuals, right?
that's right, yeah. Now, of course, we can bless
It's
the
all
individual.
word magic.
Hold on,
It's
hold on,
all
hold
word
on,
magic.
Paul, I agree with you. I actually agree with you. I can't
Yeah,
stand it. I cannot stand it. It
yeah.
goes against Christian it goes against Christian teaching. It goes
If
against the doctrines, the Catholic doctrines. But let's just be let's just be clear here. According to the document, it's the blessing of the individuals in the it's the blessing of the individuals in that couple. So it's not blessing the two couples. But I don't agree with
Okay,
it either.
I,
I
I,
don't agree with it
I'd
either.
say
I don't
this.
agree with
I'd
it
say
either.
real quick. Then I would say, if someone is actively and deliberately committing sin, how can any Christian bless them? That would be my argument. If somebody committed a sin and then repented, and you felt sorry for the sin you committed, then fine, you could bless those person. But how could you, with a clean conscience, knowing the religion that you're in, bless people who are still committing what you consider a sin? And I think you'd agree with me on that one, right? Now, look,
I actually disagree, but anyways, go ahead. The reason why I
really,
disagree, Paul, the reason why I disagree is because it's the nature of blessing is to help the sinner come closer to God or change. It's to
but you're
encourage.
not. You're affirming it.
No, 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 you're not. What you're doing is
So
when
they're getting married, you're blessing the individual person. They're saying, we're going to keep committing what you consider a sin. And you go, oh, bless you both anyway. Do you do that to murderers? Does a murderer go out and kill babies and then go up to the priest and go, oh, well, I'm still killing babies, but can I get a blessing? Oh, yeah, there you go. There's your blessing, mate. Now off you go back to the next school.
if a,
Like,
if
do you
a,
not?
if a person said, I'm still killing babies, or I'm still going to continue in this sinful act.
Like
I'm still going to
bumming a
continue.
man,
Yeah.
right?
So yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, like bombing a man. Um, that cannot be blessed because the intention is not to change. So if a
yeah.
person says, "I want to change, I want to become more like Jesus Christ,"
Oh,
because
yeah,
we are
then bless him. Absolutely.
all sinners, it's the blessing is supposed to encourage the person to become more like Christ. It's to
But
encourage
they're
them.
getting married. They are literally saying, "I'm committing to the sin that you're against." Oh, I know I'm going to bless either one of both of you individually, and it's like that's the same thing. Do you really think that the homosexuals that are getting these blessings? Do you really think that it's teaching them a lesson that that's a sin, or does it seem, even though they're being blessed individually, does it still seem as if that priest or is still condoning that action? And there's my point. My point is that if you're going to have a policy of this is bad and this is good, then you need to stick to it. What the church has done is gone, oh well, we've got to be more inclusive, so we're going to take these people in, but we're going to find a workaround for it. And that's what they've done with the Bible. They did the same bloody thing, and that's my point. Yeah, my point is that over time they have manipulated things in such a way to get us to think the way they want us to think. And in 50 years' time, you'll have Christian children going to church with homosexual couples going to church and praying in front of the cross and going, oh, it's okay because they blessed us, so I'm just going to carry on doing my thing. And that's where I got a problem. So I look, whatever you're going to do in your bedroom is none of my concern as far as I'm concerned, right? I don't think it's healthy, but if that's what you're going to do, then you go ahead and do it. I don't have any influence over that. But I'm not going to condone what they're doing. That's not the same thing. None of my business. I'm going to keep my nose out. It's none of my business, right? You do you, leave me alone, right? Don't tread on me, as it were. And like that's fine, but when you're forcing it into everybody's lives and you're forcing it into Christianity, where it shouldn't be, right? I mean, do you really think that there's going to be an imam out there that's going to bless individual homosexuals? Like, it's not going to happen. So they're corrupting the religion. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay. The religion, I mean, it really can't be corrected. It's almost impossible because the reason why you even have an objection is because you understand that the religion itself is against it. That's the only reason why you can even object it is because you understand that the religion does not teach it, and nowhere. Let's not forget what kind of a religion Christianity is. Christianity is a religion that forces you to admit that you are a sinner. You have to. That's the starting point for every
But
person.
are you admitting that to yourself, the priest, or God?
The first thing you have to do is admit it to yourself and admit it to God.
and then God. Right. So why do you need the priest?
Why do you need a priest? What?
Why do you
What?
need the priest, and why do you need the church? There's my point.
Oh, I see. Because Jesus says so.
God, no, but God's in your heart. You said that that book was written 900 AD,
No,
right? You,
90
you
AD.
90 AD. That's what they tell you.
No, that's the historical evidence. So for example, Jesus Christ said that we need the church. He gave power to the apostles to forgive sins. All of this is in the scriptures. So he's the one who established the church, founded the church. He's the one who, I mean, how else was it going to survive, right? After Jesus ascended into heaven, it had to survive somehow.
Word
And it
of
had to,
mouth, the way
and,
that it.
and it had to correspond to reality and form a hierarchy. So that and it survived in that form for 2,000 years. So so
His,
so basically, it's because Jesus said so. The reason why a priest can forgive sins is because Jesus said so. And the whole idea is to get people to convert and be more like Christ. That's the
right.
entire thing. But we don't
I
we
get
don't do
that.
anything unless Jesus Christ says so. But
So,
just going back to the blessings that you mentioned, um, like the first thing a Christian has to recognize is that they are sinners. That's the initial point. Whether your sin
but
is
then you
being
have to do something about it,
yeah,
right?
yeah, well, yes,
Right,
you do. Yeah. So you
right.
and many of us we sin in many
You
different ways.
can't carry on being a homosexual after you've let
Thank you,
Jesus into your life,
thank
right?
you, brother. Thank you.
Exactly.
Exactly. So,
So why would you bless them? That's my point. So why
exactly.
would you bless somebody who's saying that is committing to carrying on with that same sin they know is against the Christian belief, and the priests are doing it? I mean, this is my point.
No, no, let me answer that. Let me answer that. The reason why you bless the individual person is because you want to encourage them to not continue to do what is evil. As you know, for example, I don't know if you remember this passage where Peter goes to Jesus, says, "How many times should we forgive our brother? 7 times?" And Jesus says, "No, Peter, not 7 times, but 77 times seven." What does that mean? That means that human beings are not perfect,
No, that's
and
right. I
and
agree.
and it takes a long time for people to change. But the fact that they have even acknowledged the sin in the first place, the fact that they are trying to change in the first place, is already a starting point. That would be better.
Yeah, but getting
That's
married
better.
though, getting
No,
married's not the
listen.
is the opposite of trying to change.
No, no,
Getting
no,
married to another the same
no.
sex
You can't.
isn't. That's
You
my
can't.
point.
You can't bless people that are getting married. Blessing just means
Yeah,
the nature of blessing is to help people, to encourage people to change their ways or to
but
change
that's not encouraged.
what they're doing.
If your child steals sweets, or if your child steals money from your purse, right? Um, do you then go, oh well, don't worry about it, it's fine, as they're reaching into the purse to take more money, say, well, you're not supposed to do that, stop doing that, but the child's still taking the money, and then they're going out and they're buying their sweets and everything else, and you say, well, I still love you and I want to bless you, and they're going in and they're taking more money out, and you go, no, I'll bless you. No, you say, well, no, that's wrong, you've got to stop doing that. Yeah, and this is my thing, I still love you,
Oh,
but this is something that and yeah, because the
no,
Christian
no, no.
do you
Go,
ever
go,
watch
go.
Jesse do
I'm
you ever
actually
watch
glad.
Jesse Lee Peterson?
Oh, yeah, I do. I'm actually glad you brought that up. I'm actually glad you
Right.
brought that. I'm a father. Um, what do you do when a child is disobedient?
You teach them not to be.
And how do you do that?
You either sit them down and talk to them, which I found for the most part works, or you
I get you, Paul.
punish them in some way. You know, I mean, here's the
I
thing
get
that
you. I get you.
with a
I get you.
child,
I get you.
right?
I get you. I get you.
With a child,
Okay.
they've got a lot of privileges that can be taken away. Let's put it like that. They're not entitled to computers or TVs or anything else. So
Okay. And do they always listen after you punish them? Do they always listen?
not always, but for the most part, they would. If the punishment's severe enough, it will teach them not to do it. But then you've got a cultural influence on top of that. It's not necessarily the child itself that's bad, but their friends and the influence in the school and everything else. So, I mean, let's put it this way, right? How many black kids in the UK would have grown up to be drug dealers and stabbing people in street corners and things like that, if it wasn't for all the rap that was around telling them to do it and it was okay? Do you know what I mean? If a black child grew up without rap whatsoever and it's just their parents' influence, they wouldn't be out doing that in the first place, would they? Because they wouldn't even know about it, right? Why would they do it? Do
Yeah.
you see what I'm saying? So it is an outside influence more.
The point I was trying to make earlier is children don't listen the first time. It usually takes a while before they understand that they shouldn't do it. It takes a while.
Yeah.
They usually very disobedient. You tell them once, and then they don't listen. You tell them a second time,
Yeah,
they
and they
don't
made
listen.
it illegal to hit them these days, so,
I know, I know, I know. But having said that, you don't you don't stop loving them. You don't
No, of
stop
course not.
you don't stop trying to get them to change, right?
No.
A parent is always trying to get them to change, even though they are disobedient, even though you punish them consistently. You're trying to get them to change, and your love for them doesn't stop. Well, it's the exact same thing with the church and its subjects, its people. What it is that's the whole point of the Christian religion. It's all to do with, we acknowledge that you are sinners. We acknowledge that you're going to consistently fall. So what we are trying to do is encourage you along the way, but also reminding you that if you continue in the way that you're continuing, the final judgment will be God and it will be hell.
Yeah.
So it's like our job is to encourage disobedient children, put it that way, disobedient children to basically change their ways consistently, because we know that they people are disobedient, right? But and will they change? I hope they do, for their own sake. And the reason why I say for their own sake is because we understand, according to the scriptures, that there will be a judgment day and people will suffer God's
Yeah.
judgment. So
Well, here's my take, because I never got around to telling you my actual take on
go ahead, bro.
things
Go ahead.
spiritually. Okay,
Oh
so
yeah, yeah.
here's
What happened there? Yeah, go ahead.
well, I mean, we talked about the religions and the elites and that sort of thing, but I never really sort of explained my standing within it, I suppose. So here's the thing: is, do you remember that last time
What
we
happened, brother? What happened?
yeah, we got carried away again, mate, as usual.
As usual.
Um, so here's my thing, right? Is I remember I told you I have a religion of truth,
Yes, I do remember that. Yes.
right? So I care about truth. I don't like, I understand faith, and you've got things like the propaganda in the media and the things the government tells you and everything else and blah blah blah. And I'm not interested in that. What I'm interested in is truth. So if I'm interested in something, I want to know the truth of it. So I will dig and I will get the bits that I know I can count on to be honest or real, and then sort of like add that to my understanding of the world around me, if you like, And I don't think many people do that. They rely too heavily on other people to tell them what they should or shouldn't be thinking, rather than sort of like going and working it out for themselves. And if you work it out for yourself, you get a much deeper understanding of what's going on. And whilst, like I said, I can't explain the elites and what their religious understandings are completely, I've gleaned little bits here and there that I sort of understand it in a overview type idea. When it comes to religion, I know there's a creator. I know
Okay.
I know that for a fact. There's no doubt in my mind. Like, for instance, I'll give you one example. My understanding is based on logic. It's not based on a faith, right? So did you know that they can't take the chemical compounds that make up the basic building blocks of life and put them together and create a
Life. Yeah.
protein or something else? They can't do that in a lab. They can't prove that you can take chemicals and put them together to create the basic understanding of life, which would be a single-celled organism, right? And a
Of course,
single-celled organism,
they have been trying the Urey Miller experiment, which failed. Was an attempt. Guys, go and check that out. They have been trying to create the building
and
blocks of
they
life, so to speak. Yeah,
that's
go
right,
ahead.
and they've been trying to do it for a long time.
For a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and not only that, but our technology's increased dramatically, and we still can't do it. That's not to say that it can't be done, but the problem that you've got is that you're doing that in a controlled environment with chemicals that have very short lifespans and are very sensitive. So you can't have too much heat or you can't have too much cold, otherwise those chemicals, they break down, right? So you have to have the perfect environment for those chemicals to exist in the first place, and then you have to have a perfect environment for those chemicals to mash in such a way that they perfectly form a single-celled organism. And I don't believe that's possible in nature. I don't think that that's ever going to be possible, because right, so there must be another explanation, and that's where I come from with it. If it's not something that was created in nature, if all life is not created as something that's created in nature, it must have been created another way. And that's how I view that there is some sort of creator, some sort of being, some sort of thing that's so massive that we could never understand it because our brains are just far too small, and we can't get our heads around it. But that's how I know that there's a creator, because it's a logical process, a thought process from one thing to the next. And it's like, they say like, oh, well, the animals mutated. Look at that, for instance, right? So you had two fish, you have a fish, and it mutates into a different type of fish, right? And we're talking, this is supposed to have happened over millions of years, right? So it mutates from one fish to another, but then that fish also has to have the opposite sex fish change at the same time, at the same moment, and they have to be in exactly the same part of the ocean for them to find each other, to be able to reproduce, to create this new offspring. But you can't have just a single pair, you have to have multiples, because you can't have them interbreeding, otherwise you're going to get a lot of deformations and things like that. So not even the idea of evolution makes any sense. You see what I mean? And this is supposed to have happened over millions of years, time and time and time and time and time again, from single-celled organisms to all the life that we have today in all its different variations. And it's just impossible. None of that makes any sense whatsoever. The science thing, the Big Bang, right? It's like, well, that's what it says in the Bible. The Bible says there was nothing and then God created everything. And it's exactly the same thing the scientists are saying, which is there was nothing and then it all just came to life. And it's like, well, it's exactly the same bloody theory. It's just science has taken God out of it. And that's what they do with a lot of science, is they take God out of it and then they put it down to either man-made or some sort of natural occurrence. So no, I don't believe, there's 5 different bacteria in our stomach, right? And this is just one example. There's 5 different bacteria in our stomach. If we don't have one of those bacteria, we die, right? So how could those 5 bacteria have all been produced and be inside our gut at the same time, and all the other miracles of each individual bodies all put together at the same time in each mutation? It doesn't make any sense, because at some point you didn't have those 5 bacteria, and now all of a sudden you do, and it's like none of it makes any sense. So I know there's some sort of creator. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's, I like the stories of Sumerians and the Anunnaki and things like that. There's a lot of stories in there, and there's a lot of things about that have a lot of comparisons to what's in the Bible, like Eden, which is where they kept the human hybrid population they kept in. They say that translates into Eden and things like that, So there's lots of things that I think, and I hear these things, I take bits from the Bible, bits of Quran, bits of Sumerians. I'm trying to make up my own understanding of what's going on. And I don't know everything, but all I can tell you for fucking sure, evolution doesn't work. None of that. Oh, you came from stardust, or that it just happened miraculously out of the blue. None of that makes any sense. When you really look at it, none of it makes any sense. So there has to be another. There has to be another explanation for it, and that's where I'm at with it.
Okay, let me ask you this question then. Let me ask you this question. I'm
Yeah.
actually that was amazing, and I'm gonna clip that and put that out because that was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. That's exactly the same conclusion I came to. Just logically speaking, you can arrive at the at you don't need to believe. You can just use logic, and you can arrive at the fact that God exists. You can arrive
Yes.
at that just through logic. So the next question then is, if this God created everything, created us, well, this God must want something from us. He must have created us for a reason. He must have created us
Well,
for a purpose. He must have created us for something. Um, and he would have, if he created us for purpose, if he created us for a reason, he would have to let us know what he wanted from us. So, for example, I'm a father. I have children. I brought children into this world. I have to tell my children what they're here for. I have to tell my children why they were created, what's what the reason is, what their purpose is, and so on. It's me, the father, who has to tell them, right? So it's the same thing with God. So if God created everything, you must have created it for a reason. No one just creates a chair for not sit in it. It's kind of stupid. So what does this God want?
well, I've spent a lot of time thinking about this sort of thing, and I've run so many different scenarios because I try to think outside of the box. So one, I'll give you an example, right? One thought I had was our understanding of time is actually very basic, right? So you know how they say that, and this is where I started with this. You know how they say that gravity affects time, right? The closer you are to a heavier gravity, the slower time moves, right?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So that's what they tell us. I don't know whether that's true or not. I haven't seen the evidence. Yeah, I haven't done that experiment personally, so I don't know. But I that's where I got the idea from. Right. What if we've been what if there's some sort of race of beings that are completely beyond our understanding, right? And they want to understand their own evolution, and perhaps they've got us created in a petri dish, and we are being monitored. Now, you'd say, well, that'd take millions of years, right? Well, not necessarily. Maybe a million years to us is a matter of minutes to them. And that's where I'm sort of saying that we think so linear, and we think so much within our own sphere of understanding of the world, that we don't ever consider the possibilities of something else. So I'm not saying that's true, but I'm just saying that I try to run scenarios or ideas that are beyond our understanding. Is it possible? Anything's possible, right? I mean, life just turned up, and there was a big bang that created the universe, or some sort of thing that created the universe. So, what is it? And maybe it's just so big. It's such a massive answer that there's no possible way that we could comprehend it. But like I said, it may be that we're bubbles in a Coca-Cola bottle of some sort of alien being, and there's loads of little bubbles floating in the, and we're just floating up from the bottom of the bottle to the top, and eventually we're going to pop. But that might, to us, take billions of years, but to them it'll take a fraction of a second.
I would say, going back to your logical conclusion, or the logical conclusion that you came to, for the existence of God. If there is a God, um,
Right.
do you agree that there is one God or many gods? Because there has to be one, right? That created everything.
Yeah, I think that
Hold on. So Shout outs to CJ. It's been a long time, brother. I haven't seen you in a long time since we had that debate. Shout outs to you. Anytime, just give me a shout and we'll organize something, brother. But yeah, go ahead, Paul. Go ahead.
Well, I'm going to tell you a personal story. When I was living in Wales years ago, I um, I don't know how this is going to be interpreted, but I'll tell you anyways. Years
I'm
ago, when I was
listening.
living in Wales,
I'm listening. Go ahead, mate. I'm listening.
years ago, when I was living in Wales, I discovered that there were mushrooms growing out the back of my house, and I went down. I spent 2 weeks on a mushroom bender. And we're literally going to sleep, waking up, taking mushrooms, and spending all day taking mushrooms, then going to sleep, taking more, waking up and taking more mushrooms. And there was a moment where
Hold on,
my
Paul. You did that?
yeah, oh mate, you wouldn't believe some of the shit I did
No
when I was
way.
younger.
Not you, mate. Not you.
Yeah, no, I did some wild shit. Mate, I could tell you stories all day long, and half of them you wouldn't believe. Trust me. But yeah.
Yeah,
So there
go
was
ahead.
a time, there was a moment where I had, well, in my interpretation of it, because obviously I was out of it at the time, but my interpretation of it was that I died. My body gave up, and I moved out of my body. I knew my body was down there, and I moved up, and I went through the ceiling, up, and I ended up in some sort of, it was like a clouded area of some sort, you know, and there was all these very, very tall beings of some sort, and they're very, very big. And whilst I was there, I was like in awe of these things, right? And they looked down on me, and you know, I was glad to be there because I knew I was supposed to be there. And they looked down on me and they said, "No, we're not ready for you yet. We're not done with you yet." And then they pushed me back, and I didn't want to go, but there was nothing I could do. And they forced me back, and I came out into my body again, and I felt weird. It was like my soul had been pushed into my body, but it was so awkward. And for months, my body didn't feel like my body. It didn't feel like my fingers. Although I could operate them, it felt like I wasn't in my fingers. Do you know what I mean? It's like that I wasn't part of the body that I was in. Do you see what I'm saying? So I could operate it and everything else. Was that real? I don't know. I really don't. But what I do know is that it was it was something a lot bigger than me that I'll never really understand. You know what I mean? Now I don't know whether it was, you know, whether it was a real experience or not. What I can tell you is one of those things that's stuck in my mind for the rest of my life. You know what I mean? I also would, and that was they were good. They were good. I also had I had the most lucid dream once several years ago, and I think this was an evil experience where it was in a dream and it was very real, and I don't know where were my surroundings, but I was there, and this entity turned up in front of me, and in the dream I knew exactly what it was. It was there to test me, and if I failed, it was going to kill me. And I knew it throughout my being. They didn't tell me it, I just knew. And then it started the test, and it made me into a 5-year-old child, and then the wash of fear over me is something I've never experienced in my entire life. I was petrified, just isn't a word. I was, throughout my entire body, absolutely terrified. And the test was that I had to overcome that fear to pass. And I took some deep breaths, I swallowed, I pushed it down inside me, and I held it, and then I stood strong, and I passed. And then it just went, and I woke up in a sweat. And yeah, so I've had these experiences, and that I can tell you now was as real as the glass that's in front of me. It was the most. It's more real than the reality around me. All right. So there are spiritual things going on. Um, I don't fully understand them, but I believe they exist. And there's a lot
I
of
would,
things
I
about the
would,
world that.
I would say, Paul. I would say what you did was amazing, which is to logically come to a conclusion that God exists. That logical path there, many try to avoid. I think that the spiritual experiences that you're talking about, I've had them. I've had those as well. I've had those as well.
On the
But
mushrooms.
not on mushrooms. Not on mushrooms. Not on mushrooms. I've had those experiences. I've had very intense spiritual experiences that have come to make me believe in a Christian religion in Jesus Christ. I've had those. I've had those. But what I'm saying is, you don't even need to rely on that. You can literally just logically come to these conclusions just by looking at science, just by looking at the world around you, just by looking at even what we are going to be talking about, what we are talking about, which is, are we safe? Look at the fact that we arrived at this place. Okay, we were talking about they. What do they want? Why are they poisoning the food? Why are they poisoning the water? Why do they want to kill us if there is no if the world is not overpopulated? What is the reason behind why they doing what they are doing? And and of course we had to go into spirituality. We had to start talking about spirituality because in order to understand what their intentions are, you kind of have to, you have to understand their mindset. You have to understand what they believe to be right and what they believe to be wrong, right? And that is the realm of morality. That is the realm of spirituality. That is the realm of those things. Why are these guys doing? Why is the government? Why are the powers that be so concerned in killing us? So concerned in trying to get rid of us? What's the reason behind it, right? But the path, the logical conclusion that you came to in order to believe that there must be a God. And this is what I'm asking people to, if they logically follow from that, okay, there is a God. This God did create everything. Okay, then this God must want something from us, and He must want us to know what He wants from us by telling us what He wants from us. He must reveal Himself. If I don't ever tell you what I want from you, you will never know. I have to reveal it to you in order for you to know. If you're just around me and I just keep my mouth shut and I never talk to you and I never tell you anything, even though I talk to you, I don't tell you anything really. You will never know what my intentions are, what I want from you. You will never know anything. So what I'm basically saying, it logically follows that if this God is this powerful and created everything, including human beings, okay, then He must want something from us. And this is what I'm trying to say. It's what I want to know from you, right? Before we get into a bit more, are we safe? Um, we went into
We
the spiritual.
deviated a little bit on that
Yeah,
one,
yeah,
didn't
we
we?
did a little bit. Yeah, we did. But I love the fact that you brought um, uh, all your Christian objections because I always wanted to reply to that. And I want you, please, please, please. I want you, Paul, to keep bringing it up. Please, please make it more and more difficult for me. Please, I beg you. But the thing is, um, now, what does this God want from? What is He telling? Who is this God? Because the God that Christians believe in is not necessarily the God that I would say the Muslims believe in. I would say that other religions believe in. It's not the same God. So
No.
who is this God? America says in God we trust. They have that on their thing. Who is
Yeah,
this
but they're not talking. They're not talking about our God. That's their God.
exactly?
Yeah,
And
that's their God. Yeah.
that's what I'm asking you. If there is a God and He did create you and He did create everything, who is this God to Paul?
Well, do you
Is it
know?
the
I've
aliens?
never.
Is it the aliens, Paul?
Well, no. The thing is that I think from everything that I've gathered information wise, from what I understand, all these alien sightings and everything, they seem to be dimensional beings rather than beings from other planets or whatever.
So they were
And
created as well, right? So
sorry.
they were, so they were created as well.
Well, I mean, if you want to look at it in a biblical sense, they're demons. These, but they obviously they show a form that we would accept, but their dimension is what the biblical understanding of hell would be. And yeah, so that's what I think they are. That I think these things are happening because people are seeing them, and very credible people are seeing them. But I don't think they're from other planets. I think it's some sort of dimensional beings that are coming and introducing into our planet. But also, I've heard there was
Yes, 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 yes.
right. One thing I understood was that there was a guy back in the 1950s or whatever that had used old magic that he'd been able to gather from other places. I don't know. Like Hitler going out and looking for all that information in his when he was doing all his archaeology and everything else, because that was real. And I think he found a lot of information about technology and things that had been buried for a very, very long time. Because there was many civilizations before ours,
That's
from
right.
what I understand.
Yep.
And that even ties in with the Bible as well. So I think that there was, well, from what I understand, this guy was dabbling in opening a dimensional port, right? And I'm not saying this is true, this is what I've heard, right? He was opening this dimensional portal, and the only person that can close the portal is the same person that opened it. And there was some sort of thing that happened. He was working for the American government at the time. Some sort of thing happened, and he died, so they couldn't actually close the portal. Anyway, these beings came through, and they made a deal with the American government that they would give them technology and advancements and everything else. At the same time, they wanted certain things from the government, and they come to an agreement. And the government thought that they were making these deals with aliens or whatever, but in actual fact, from what I think, is they were demons that came
They're
through and
making
made.
deals with demons. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think so. So there's. I think that's where it started. That's what I've heard. I don't know how much of it's true, but it seems that's
But
where
let
it
me ask you,
started.
do you think, given the nature of the government, and we've described that what they want is not in our best interest. We've kind of
No,
established.
it's
Okay,
quite the
it's
opposite. Yeah.
quite the opposite, exactly. Now, what you just said is very interesting about the aliens and how you perceive the aliens. That's exactly how I perceive these aliens. To me, these aliens
Yeah.
are nothing more but than demons. To me, that's who they really are. And do you
And Tucker Carlson said that
am I right?
recently as well.
Am I right in saying that if what does that tell you if the government is working with demons? What is
Well,
that?
it
What?
explains a lot, doesn't it?
Thank you. And this is the conclusion that I want us to reach. If they're working with demons, then it explains why they're doing what they're doing, and it explains why things are the way they are, and why. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So
Yes, I
it
do. I understand exactly where you're coming from.
explains literally everything.
It does explain a lot, yeah, and that's a logical conclusion as opposed to like like believing things. And I've heard lots of different things. Some things I'll hear, I go, I don't know, like you hear about the lizard people and things like that, and it's like David Icke talks a lot of sense. He knows a lot of shit. The lizard people thing, I don't know. Was he seeing a demon that day in the changing rooms? I don't know, but it's sort of like, well, is it lizard people or are they demons? And are those the ones that are the ones he's seeing, the ones he interprets as lizard people? Um,
I think David Icke knows. I think that he knows his demons.
he
Um,
knows a lot.
he
Yeah,
knows his demons, but he wants to push us. So he gives us a bit of the truth, but he doesn't give us the entire truth. And I think he
no.
knows. He understands exactly who these governments are working with. By the way, guys, I am not opposed to government, to hierarchies. I think that's the natural order of things. Governments and hierarchies are natural. You see them in nature; they are everywhere. Even within the nuclear family, you can see it. The father is the head, the mother comes at the bottom, and then you've got the child. So hierarchies are natural. I'm not opposed to the government.
Well, that used to be the case.
Yeah, what I'm opposed to is is what the government does. It's the agenda of the government, which doesn't make sense to a lot of people. Because a lot of people ask,
Unless
"Oh,
you put it into a spiritual understanding, and then
exactly."
it makes
Because it's like
sense.
you're supposed to be governing us. You're supposed to be looking after our best interests. You're supposed to take care of us. You're supposed to protect us and provide for
But
us. And why is it that you're working against that and trying to destroy us at the same
well,
time? It doesn't
this
make
is
sense.
this is this is all the word magic stuff again, right? And we touched on this last time, right? They'd say they use a word, and then it's the complete opposite. You know what I mean? It's like women's healthcare, right, which is actually murder. It's the complete opposite of healthcare, right? And it's the same with right. Okay, and it's the same with like the health service. Okay, well, what they actually do is they prolong your illness instead of curing it. Things like cancer, diabetes, things like that. They don't cure it because there's no point in curing it. There's no money in curing it. The money is in perpetuating the problem and just making it manageable, which is what they do. There's cures for these things. They discovered them years ago, but they keep them to themselves because there's no profit in curing something.
I have a friend of mine who believes it's all about money. The reason why they're doing what they're doing, the reason why they poison our water, the reason why they poison our food, the reason why they do what they do, it's all to do with money. That's the
Well,
reason.
I'd say this. I'd say you've got the elites at the very top. These people are the ones that literally own the corporations, Vanguard, and all these the global network that sort of binds each and every one of us together at the minute, right? And they control the currency, which is their form of control of us, right? And then you have the overlords, who are the government officials, the people who run the companies, Mark Zuckerberg, people like that, Bill Gates. They're all overlords. These people are like, they are, they crave the currency and the power, but they don't have all the power. They're still controlled because they're after the currency. Right? It's the people who own the currency that control everybody who wants the currency. And all our overlords want the currency, and the elites control the currency itself. And then people like you and I are on the bottom.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's power, it's wealth, it's control. A lot of these people are PDF files as well, because I know we're on YouTube.
Yep.
And they like the young ones. Whether they started out that way, I don't know. But the trouble is that when you can do anything you want, that sort of thing becomes appealing, I think. And
Oh,
of course,
that's not
there's
the reason.
already a culture of that sort of thing anyway. You know what I mean?
The reason why uh, the
PDF,
PDF, right?
PDF files. Yeah,
There's a reason. It's not just necessarily about liking young boys or young girls. It's not just a sexual thing. It's actually to do with sacrifice. Abortion is a form of sacrifice. It's to do with
yes, no, that's true.
it goes all the way back to Moloch. Basically,
Yes.
you're sacrificing the most innocent of creatures, which is what a child is.
Well, I
And
mean, a baby that hasn't been born yet is a pure soul.
thank you.
It's not even had a chance to be in this world and
Thank
commit a sin.
and the reason
So
why they do it, if we're going to go back to, if we are going to go back to what the conclusion that we arrived, that these are not aliens that they're talking to, these are actually demons. And the reason why they are doing what they're doing is because apparently what happens is what they're trading for, what they're getting out of this arrangement with these
it's
demonic beings.
misery,
They're not.
suffering, and
It's basically
souls.
they want to be inhabited by these demons, and they want to have the power that these demons have. So they want to be inhabited by these demonic beings. So
Like Hillary Clinton.
what these demonic beings want them to do is to abuse children and sacrifice children because they understand that that is the most offensive thing that you can do to God. The
That's
most
right.
offensive
I've
thing
heard that.
that you can do to God is by hurting children. So that's
That's
the
right.
reason why they do what they do. It's not just for
And
sexual
and that
reasons.
that's part of the adrenochrome thing as well. Is that
Right.
it's
That's right.
the one of the most horrific things, because the way that they get that, just so that everybody understands, the way that they get adrenochrome is that they abuse the child, they beat them, they terrify them, they do things, that they do, the sexual things and everything else, to basically elicit the most horrifying experience that child goes through. Then they slit its throat and harvest its blood, and then they drink that blood. And of course, adrenochrome. The reason it's called adrenochrome is because it is adrenalized blood, basically, and you get more adrenochrome from you get a stronger adrenochrome from a child, because it's easier to scare a child because it's an experience they haven't had before, whereas with an adult it's a lot more difficult to scare an adult.
That's
um,
right.
and
That's right.
even if you do scare an adult, it's not going to have the same effect that it would on you do the same thing to an adult, same thing to a child. The child would have a much more extreme response to it, which is why children are used for the adrenochrome thing. But it's like it again, one of the most offensive things you could do is drink the blood of a child, which, I mean, it's abhorrent even to people who don't believe in God. You know what I mean?
That's right.
So
And
yeah.
that's exactly, you see, now it makes sense because a lot of people complain about the government and wonder why the government is doing what they're doing. And they just put it down to money. Oh, it's just money, money, money. But these people are not actually motivated by money. And I've always asked this question because it never made sense to me. I'll say, hold on, but they already have the power. They already have money. They already have their influence. They already have everything. They can do what they want to do. So why do it? So
I mean,
and
money helps. Money helps, and you
no,
can
no,
never have too much
I think
money.
money is the tool that they use to control us.
That's
Um,
right.
but I
But
don't
they're
think,
being controlled by the money as well. They do the sacrifice and everything else as well. But having
yeah.
money, it's like somebody like Nancy Pelosi. I mean, why would she keep doing insider trading and accumulate more money if it wasn't important to her? There is an importance to them with money as well, but they're also doing all these other
Yeah,
things.
but I look at money as a means to an end, basically.
No, that's right. Yeah.
It serves a purpose. It serves their purpose. But what's motivating them is not necessarily money. Money is required for them to do what they want to do. But
Yes.
the agenda that what motivates them is their agenda, and their agenda, by the looks of it, is quite dark.
Yeah.
This is what I'm trying to say. So now it makes sense. You see, when you look at it in this light, it makes sense why they're doing what they're doing, and why things are happening the way they are happening, and that makes sense. For example, why would you legalize something like killing babies? Why would you do that? That's crazy to me.
Because
People do
any
people
logically thinking person, this is the argument that I've heard quite a few times. It's a really funny one, because I've seen people do interviews on the basis of this. If you found a single-celled organism on Mars, science would say that that was life on Mars. And yet they argue that the cells that are completely individual to the woman in the body aren't life, and they're just cells. And it's like, well, hang on a sec, you can't have it both ways. And the interviewer says, well, if you found a molecule of life on Mars, would that be life on Mars? And you say, well, yeah, that would be a single-celled organ, and that would be life. You say, okay, well, what about a baby in the womb? You see, and they trap them in a logical argument. You can't have one without the other. It's either not life on Mars if it's a single-celled organism, and therefore it's not life in the womb of a woman, or a birthing person, or it is life on Mars, and therefore the life it's life in the womb of the mother too. And so, again, it's that logical. It's not. I don't go by feelings or like what I'm told or anything else. I want to know the logical, factual understanding of things, because if that's true, then I know that I'm on the right footing. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
sort of
yeah,
like there's
yeah.
faith is one thing, but knowing, full well knowing, is something completely different. And
But
and that's where I'm at with it.
we've got people today trying to contradict science. We've got people. Science says
Well,
that
they did
life
it doing the
begins
event, didn't they?
life begins at the point of conception, right? which
Right.
means that a unique DNA is formed during the fertilization, a unique DNA specific to that particular child. But people are trying to say that's not when life starts, even though science says. And this is what I'm trying to say about the influence that the government is having and the delusion that people are willing to accept in order to justify. I don't know what they're trying to justify. Maybe justify their feelings. I don't know, or justify the wrong that they do. I don't know. But science tells you, biology tells you one thing, and they want to contradict biology in order to
I
justify
mean, look
abortion,
at
in order to
yeah,
justify, a man can be a woman can be a man, in order to
yeah,
justify.
yeah.
They are willing to sacrifice reason, logic, everything in
What?
order to
That's right.
justify
Yeah,
their feelings.
and I've had arguments with these people before. One that was absolutely classic. I've got screenshots of it. Was that this person messaged me on Reddit and started calling me a racist and saying all these horrible things about me. And I'm only saying the similar things that we're talking about now. I wasn't saying anything nasty or anything. And yeah, they started having a go at me, calling me a racist and everything else. I said, well, can you tell me what racism is? And they're like, oh, well, it's you. And I said, well, racism, yeah. It's a race. I said, well, racism is treating somebody differently because of the way they look. That's essentially what racism is. Is it looking at somebody and judging them primarily on the color of their skin instead of who they are, right? And I said, but if you take all the DEI stuff, because they started going on about DEI, it wasn't called DEI at the time, it was called equality, right? They went equality, then equity, now it's DEI.
Yeah.
And I said, but the thing is that if you're treating someone differently, regardless of whether it's positively or negatively, that's the definition of racism. If you are looking at someone going, well, I'm going to treat this person differently because of the colour of their skin, that's the racism that you say that you're against. You know what I mean? So that's the logical argument for me, is that I'll always try and find the person's character. I'll give everybody a chance, treat them all the same. Everybody gets treated the same. I'll talk to them the same. Nobody gets judged for any reason. They all get treated the same, and then it's up to them to show me who they are. If you're a bad person, I don't want anything to do with you. If you're a good person, I've got time for you. And that's the way it should be, and it should be the same in business as well. Well, you're the best qualified pilot, therefore you're going to get the job. Instead of, well, you're a black person, so you get it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, that's the racism. They could say about reverse racism is like racism against white people, but the reverse racism is actually treating somebody positively because of the way they look. That's the reverse racism that they should be looking at, but they can't see the logic of that. And I put that in terms like that. I said, treating somebody positively or negatively is racism if you're just judging them by the way they look. And there was silence for a little bit, and then they went, so tell me how the earth is flat. You see, because they didn't want to argue that point. They knew that they were stumped by it, so they wanted to change the subject. And they, I hope when I have the arguments like that, or disagreements, discussions, whatever, I hope that I'll get through to somebody eventually. That I'll plant the seed, and maybe in a year's time, 2 years' time, it'll grow into a little sapling, and they'll realise that they've gone wrong. Do you know what I mean? But I don't condone what they're doing right now, like the taking the life of a baby and everything. Like I can't forgive something like that unless they know it's wrong and they're not going to ever do that again. But the trouble is that we live in a world where there's no consequence anymore. There's no consequence to the child stealing the money. There's no consequence to the woman who's killing her baby, or the woman that's having unprotected sex willy-nilly left, right and centre because she can have the abortion. There's no consequence to the abortion anymore. There's no consequence to having children out of wedlock. There's no consequence to divorce. We're getting to the stage now where there's no consequence to even worse crimes.
Who enabled all of these things?
The government did. The government's the ones that did it. And society went along with it.
Thank you. So we've got the government enabling it, passing laws, enabling it. and then we have society going
Going
along
along.
with it. So the way I
That's
look
right.
at it is, yes, the government is to blame. People are also to blame for going along with something that evil. But you said one, because people can do anything. You said something to the effect of people can do anything these days, and there's no consequences to it. There's no consequences to it. Have you heard of a saying called it's called "Do as thy will"? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, I've heard it. Yeah.
Alistair Crowley, I think, coined that term.
Yeah, the creator of these Scientology, right?
Yeah, Alistair Crowley was responsible for a lot of things. Uh, but you should check them out, Alistair Crowley. But
I've done some looking into him.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and one of the commands, put it that way, or one of the revelations that he had from a certain Egyptian god. Um,
Oh, the
again,
guy's a Satanist, no doubt. Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah. There's Satanists, and there's the occult. The occult is a bit more hardcore than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd sort of like lump them all in one basket. They're all sort of like,
Yeah, yeah,
they're
but
on the other side. They're in the dark side. You know what I mean?
yeah, and one of the rules is, well, they said there's only one rule, and the rule is to do as thy will, meaning do whatever you want. That shall be the
Yeah,
rule. Do as thy will shall be the law.
yeah,
So when I look, it's funny you said what you said. People these days can do whatever they want. Children can go and steal from a shop, and there's no consequences. Women can have sex willy nilly because guess what? They can always abort the child.
that's
They
right.
can. So to me, all that it translates into do as thy will, meaning do whatever it is that you
Yeah,
want.
man. And the government's encouraging it. I think the trouble is that we we all know what's right and wrong. I mean, even down to our very bones, right? I mean, like for instance, like even if there was no religion in the world, um, killing your mother would be an absolutely awful thing. So you know that would be wrong. Somebody who cared for you and nurtured you, know that would be wrong. So you would logically sort of know that you wouldn't do that to other people either. Like, because if it's wrong to kill your mother, it's wrong to kill other people as well. We know that deep down in our bones, right? It's a moral understanding as an animal, animals don't kill their cubs; they protect them and they'll give their lives for them. You know what I mean? It's a natural instinct to know these things. But as higher functioning beings, we should know even more so. So it shouldn't matter what the government says. We should be going on what we know to be a moral understanding of the world around us. I,
But
I, I, I had an argument with a dog walker earlier today because my dogs are off a lead, and she's going, "It's illegal. Get your dogs away from my dog. It's illegal not to have them on a lead." I said, "I don't care whether it's illegal or not." And she said, "Oh, well, you should, you should." I said, "Well, listen, slavery was legal at one point, but that doesn't mean it was morally right. So I don't agree with all the laws." So,
yeah,
and that was it. It's just because the government says that it's okay doesn't mean that it's right. And it's the same with killing babies. It was the same with slavery at the time. And all this stuff with COVID where everybody conformed and they were dobbing in their neighbours and everything else. And I wouldn't go along with any of it, and I stood my ground. And I would walk through a supermarket full of masked people giving me dirty looks, and I would walk through thinking, no, don't look at me like I'm weird. You're all acting weird, and I'm the one that's acting normally. You see? Because I understand that I have a moral responsibility to stand up for what's right. I won't go along with the crowd. Right. I won't go along with the crowd if I know that it either doesn't make sense or it's wrong. And I knew what was going on, so I wouldn't go along with it.
and,
Um, and
and sorry, Paul. And this is why I agree with. This is why I completely. This is why I usually put more blame on the people than the government, because you can't change the government. If you want to change the government, people have to take responsibilities for what they do wrong. Because like you rightly said, people know what is right, what is wrong. In the Christian religion, you don't need a religion in order to know what is right and what is wrong, because we naturally know that. We call it in Judeo-Christian religion, we call it the natural law. We were created with the natural law, which means we understand what is wrong and what is right. We understand
Yes.
that instinctively. We understand that. That's why, put it this way, I wouldn't want you to do to me something that, if I slap you, I wouldn't want you to slap me back. If I hurt you,
That's
I
right.
wouldn't want you to hurt me back. Just understanding that will let you know that people understand what is right and what is wrong. Just that simple understanding of
Exactly.
um, exactly. So the point I'm trying to make is this is why I hold people more accountable, because guess what? If we can change people's minds, then we can hold the government more accountable.
Of course. Well,
And,
and that's what I was talking about last time.
yeah,
When I was saying, like, the Great Awakening, you have to wake people up and make them see the reality of the world around them instead of the one that they're living in. Because then you can affect change within the government. Because
is
if you've got the masses all know what's going on, then the government can't do the damnful satanic things
that
they're
they do
doing.
exactly. But the thing is, the now the end, when you look at the end of it all, right? When you look at what's required in order, the extent of that requirement is, okay, people can be aware that the government is kind of doing bad things and they themselves go along with it, and they also do bad things and that they need to change. But the truth is this: until people are ready to pay with their lives, to sacrifice their own lives, because the government will not go quietly. Um, until people are willing to sacrifice their lives, they will never, ever, ever change anything in the government. And what I see with a lot of people is they're compromising. They're
Yeah, they do.
compromising.
They compromise, yeah.
Yeah, they compromise in order to, in
With the
order to.
pronouns or the trans thing, it's like most people know
Exactly.
boys can't be girls,
Yeah.
but they go along with it anyways because they're bloody scared.
No, no,
You know?
and I'll tell you, they're not willing to sacrifice their lifestyles. They're not
That yeah,
willing. They're not
that's
willing
right.
to sacrifice their way of life. It's like I've got a kushti. I don't want to. I don't want to rock the boat. If they want to coach, if they want to call women men and men women, it's up to them. It doesn't affect me. How many times have you heard that saying? Well, they can
Yeah.
do it. Doesn't affect me. Yeah, until it knocks on your door, and then it starts affecting you, and then you're gonna be like, oh, I should have done something before. But now it's too late, because now it's
But
at your.
this is why I make it a policy to speak my mind. Like the amount of times that people have, I've had people turn their back on me and completely. Every time they see me, they cross the road. They won't have anything to do with me because I've stood and said, look, boys can't be girls, girls can't be boys. It doesn't make any sense. You can't say that you're mentally stable if your argument is I have to chop pieces of my body off to feel normal. That doesn't make any sense. You're not mentally stable if you're saying that I have to chop pieces of my body off. That's not normal. And it's not somebody that's right in the mind, right? And I'll say these things. I'll stand up. I'll speak my mind, and I'll take the consequences. I've been homeless before. I spent a year living on the street, sleeping in alleyways and derelict buildings and everything else. And if it comes to it, you could take everything away from me, and I would still be the same person. I wouldn't change. And I'd still think that I'd done the right thing. If I'd stood on my principles and that was the consequence, then there we are. But I also said you could put £1 billion in my bank and I'd still be exactly the same person as I am now. It wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to me. So yeah, there is a material world around us and everything else. And I love the stuff I have. Some of the stuff I have is fucking awesome. But if it gets taken away, then so be it. It doesn't change who I am. And it's not a punishment for me, you know?
Guys, Paul, we've reached the 2 hour mark. We're gonna be, by the way, guys, we're gonna be doing this. Me and Paul are gonna be going back and forth every week. All right, so don't worry. We're gonna be coming up with brand new
Yeah, I'd
topics
like that.
for you guys, and letting you know some things that you might not be aware of. So we're gonna be doing this every week, guys. So don't worry about that. And yes, Paul, last thoughts. What's the solution?
Here's what we need to do. We need to practice what we preach and stand up for what is right. And even if you're the only one in the room doing it, then so be it. But you can't afford to be cowed by threats or words or anything else, because really those things don't hurt you anyway. You know, they water off a duck's back, really. And you know, if somebody's going to take your job away for you standing up for what you know is right, then so be it. You don't want to be in a company like that anyway in the first place, do you? You know what I mean? I know these are hard times, and I know things aren't easy for people, but at the end of the day, again, this is a moral battle. This is not, it's a spiritual war, and this isn't about a material thing. This is about, if none of us stand up, then they'll roll all over us, and they will do everything that they want to do. So we have to. We're not just standing up for ourselves, we're standing up for the generations ahead of us that are going to be stuck in a system much worse than the one we're in. So that's the ultimate understanding, is that if we don't stand up now and we don't talk about these things and be scared, and be fearless in our willingness to sacrifice everything, if that's what it takes to stand up for what we believe, then they win. And you know, do we want that? Because we do have to pick a side at this point. Are you going to stand on the side of good, or are you going to stand on the side of evil? You know, because those are the two choices. There's no in between. You either have to be one or the other. So you could go on the stand to the side of evil if you want, and watch all these children being mutilated and doing all these other things, and watch society degrade even further. Or you can stand on the side of good and put up a bloody fight. Because at least if you die on your feet instead of living on your knees.
Wow, couldn't have said it better myself. My final thoughts: are we safe? No, we are not safe. We are not safe from the powers that be, and we are not safe from ourselves. The only way we are safe is if we live up to the principles, the morals that we believe to be right. So, understanding what kind of morals you live by or what your principles are is very important, because that's
Yeah,
what's going to
particularly
dictate.
for men.
Exactly. That's what's going to dictate the impact you have in society. And like Paul said, it's not about you. It's about the next generation. All right. We all gonna die. Listen, guys.
That's right.
That's out the bag. All right. You're all gonna die, guys. All right.
Yeah.
There is no there's no living forever. All right. So we have to live for the next generation. And if you do care about the next generation, you do have to care about your principles, your morals, and you do have to question them. This is why I am happy to, and I do want to do a show where um, Paul actually just questions me on Christianity, really like just just drills. Do you know why? Do you know why? Because I think it's very very important. Because if we are talking about morals and principles, guys, we you I get my morals and my principles from Christianity. The question is where do you get yours from? Because a lot of people don't even know that they don't actually live up to any morals or principles, and the morals or principles that they claim to live by, sometimes it comes from what the government teaches. So this is why a lot of people are indifferent when it comes to abortion. I guess it just it happens. They don't actually have a position on it. It doesn't affect me, so why should I care? So basically what I'm basically saying is I get my morals from Christianity. That's where I get my morals and principles from. And it is important for you to have your morals questioned and challenged. You have to have that. If you don't.
Your ideas, questions,
Yes.
challenge. Yeah,
Ideas,
absolutely.
questions, morals, principles, you have to have them challenged. If you don't have them challenged, how do you know you are following what is right and what is wrong? What is right? How do you know you're following what is right? And and I do want Paul to consistently challenge me on it, because it is important for my morals and principles to be challenged at all times. That's how you know that person is doing the right thing. Shout outs to
But
True.
you also,
Sorry, Paul. Just hold on a second. Shouts to True A True
your
A and
faith
R.
push.
True A and R, bro. Shouts to you for that donation, bro. I really appreciate that. He said, "Question:
Well, if
Did your faith push the fear and mandates like pay it to Caesar, or did they lead you against it? Did your faith push the fear and mandate like pay it to Caesar, or did they lead you against it?" Um, I think I know the passage that you're talking about where Jesus says, Give to Caesar's what is Caesar's, and give to God's what is God's. Um, what does that mean? That means that you shouldn't confuse your obligation to God with the government. The government, the,
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
which basically means standing for your principles. So I don't. My obligation is to God and is to my principles, to what I believe is right, and I don't ever confuse it with what the government's agenda. The government has their own agenda, so I pay them the tax that they want. I give it to them. Jesus actually said, "Whose face is on the coin?" Oh, it's Caesar's. Well, give to Caesar's what is Caesar's, because that's what this is. What it's his face in it. Give it to him. But that has nothing to do with your priority to your morals, to your moral obligation. That is more.
I understand that question. I get what he's asking. What he's asking is, did your faith, did Christianity
Mm.
push the fear and mandates like pay it to Caesar, like in the Bible, or
Mm.
did they lead you against it? As in, did they lead? Did your religion lead you against it, or did I think did the religion stand up against it? I
No,
I think
the religion didn't.
Christianity did stand up against it for the
It's,
most
it's,
part. There's many Christians that did.
I mean, it was persecuted for 300 years. It is still the most persecuted religion in the world if you go in and check it out. But for 300
Oh
years,
yeah, that's for certain. Yeah.
for 300 years, the Romans were trying to kill literally every single Christian, because they couldn't stand the fact that, these guys are not worshiping the emperors. So they didn't like the fact that they wouldn't assimilate into the Roman kind of religions and so on and so forth. So it stood up against the government. It stood up against the government, and it continuously stands up against the government. I mean, this is why you only see Christians outside of abortion clinics. This is why. I mean, that's the reason why. So, my religion, my faith, doesn't lead me to conform. Now, but my religion also agrees with the government, agrees with the structure of the government. The government structure is important. It's not against government structure. It only goes against the government when the government does not that does something immoral or passes a law that is wrong. That's when we are supposed to stand against the government. But the government itself, the structure itself, we are for that.
I want to say something real quick. As far as the religion goes today, one thing that I saw which was really sort of was a contradiction to what I see religion as, was my ex-girlfriend is an American girl, black girl, and she used to when I was with her, she used to watch this pastor. He'd do like YouTube videos, and this pastor's in America, obviously, so it's black church, and this dude was speaking the truth like you and I do. And he was saying, all these things are bad, and he's pointing everything out, talking about the spiritual side of it and everything. And if Christianity was ever going to be anything, as a sort of like an organization, as a church thing, that would be it. That would be my expectation of a Christian church, would be having a leader, a pastor who's willing to stand up there and say, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is what's going on, and just laying it all out, not because he's trying to win people over, but because he's speaking the truth. And the few that are doing that, and this is why this is why I see the contradiction between one and the other, where you've got a priest on one side in the Western world going like, oh well, I'm blessing the individual homosexual in the hope that, and the others saying, well no, this is wrong, and pointing it out and showing the truth and sharing it wholeheartedly and speaking from his heart like you and I do. That, I think, is what Jesus would have expected of his church, and not the organisation that we have with regards to the Vatican and all the churches and everything else that we're seeing today, where they're compromising left, right and centre, they're twisting things. So I would have said that there's a potential for Christianity, but it's not the mass corporation type Christianity that we generally think of. It's the people, the preachers, who really are just speaking the truth and sharing the truth to the people that come to hear him. And that's to just clarify my point.
And I share your and I share your sentiment. I know exactly what you're talking about. The way I would reply, I would say, Paul, you need to become a Christian and you need to go out there and talk like this. Um,
I need to find myself a good pastor first.
but the thing is, we believe Jesus Christ's words to be the truth. So the priest, every time he says a mass, the priest every time he does the mass, he believes that he's speaking the truth. He's helping people, for example, to not go down the path of abortion, for example, not go down the path of believing that a man can be a woman and a woman can be a man. Because guess what?
Those are the ones.
Christianity is against those things.
Yeah.
And there's also how do I say this? There's also apologetics. One of them is Bob from Speaker's Corner. You need to check him out. Bob from Speaker's Corner. Go and check him out. There's also apologetics that are very bold in terms I would say I'm one of those. I'm not on the level of an apologetic yet, but I'm one of those who's very bold in saying, well, LGBTQ. I'm sorry to say it, guys. My religion does not allow me to hate you, but it is wrong. It is a sin. My religion does say that that is a sin, and that's the end of it. That doesn't mean I hate you, but it
Well,
is.
the thing
But
is that human beings are beautiful things. I mean, if you think about what they are, they're an amazing creation, right? Each and every one of them. It's just that you can't condone some of the things they do, right?
Yeah, because there's such a thing as right and wrong, and this is what a lot of people a lot of people want to avoid that conversation because they don't really want accountability, and a lot of
Yeah.
people running away from accountability, and that's the issue. And I would say to those Christian do Christians need to do more? Absolutely. Christianity tells them they need to do more. So the Bible tells them that they need to do more. So but the thing is, like with everyone, it's a process. It's not everyone will have the courage to go out there and be attacked for speaking the truth. Not everyone's going to have that courage. So it's like I look at everyone like that. How many people have the courage to go outside of abortion clinics? How many people have the courage to stand there and say a man cannot be a woman cannot be a man? Stop sexualizing our kids in schools. Stop doing all of that.
Yes.
How many people? How many people? Regardless if you follow Christianity or don't follow Christianity, religion or no religion, how many people have the courage to go out there and be bold about it? So far,
Not even the parents of the children. I mean, you would have
thank
thought those
you,
were the ones
thank
of
you,
all people that would stand up against it. Those would be the ones that would stand up against it the most.
thank you. This is what I'm saying. So
But
when
yeah,
people lay that criticism at Christians, first of all, I find it rich, but at the same time, I'm like, I accept that because
Rich.
of what I believe. Because of what I believe, I accept that because we do need to do more. And Jesus Christ does not
Yeah.
tell us to point the finger. Jesus Christ tells us to be humble, accept it, and go out and do more because we do have an objective moral foundation by which we work for. So we can't work against it. We have to work for it. So yeah, absolutely agree with you 100%. This is why I'm willing to accept every single criticism because guess what? We do need to do more. This is one of the reasons why I even opened this podcast. It's so that I'm looking at the whole world and I'm thinking I have to do something. I have to say something, and that's the reason why I'm even here doing this podcast. And hopefully, this will lead me to doing even more things and becoming even more active as far as spreading the truth goes. But yeah, guys, we have to end it. There's been times of me and Paul can go on forever. I'm telling you that right now.
Yeah, that's true. Man. Yeah, we could. That's for sure.
We're gonna catch you guys next time, next week. But salute to everyone watching. Salute for the donation from Trina. Um, uh, and yeah, guys, we'll see you next time. Peace. Stay there, mate.